The name of the movie is Miracle in Cell Number 7. The opening scene features a lawyer named Young, who is trying to defend her father against false accusations of sexual assault and murder of a young girl. During the court trial, Young argues that the prosecutor is making false claims, stating that she witnessed the entire incident. After winning the trial, Young leaves the courtroom and notices a balloon entangled in barbed wire. The balloon would normally have popped, but it creates a poetic image. The scene then flashes back to 1997, showing a 6-year-old Young and her father, Yu, looking at a store window. They admire a Sailor Moon backpack, and Yu promises to buy it for Young once he gets paid. Suddenly, they see a police commissioner buying the same backpack for his daughter. Yu tries to grab the backpack but is assaulted and thrown out of the store by the officer. After the incident at the store, Young and her father, Yu, return home without the backpack. Though they are slightly battered, they remain in high spirits. Young, a kind and smart child, understands the situation and doesn't feel sad about not getting the backpack. Despite being very young, she takes care of her father, who has a developmental disability and might have wanted the backpack for himself. The next day, Yu gets paid at work. While counting his money, the police commissioner's daughter approaches him and offers to guide him to another store that sells the same backpack. Unfortunately, the little girl slips on the icy pavement in the market, and a brick falls on her head, resulting in her death. In a desperate attempt to revive her, Yu performs CPR. However, a female bystander misunderstands the situation and reports him for assaulting and killing the girl. Yu is then apprehended and taken to the police station. Due to his mental illness, he doesn't understand that he's been arrested, and he tries to leave, explaining that his daughter is alone at home. However, this only leads to Yu being beaten by the police officers, who keep him in custody overnight. The next morning, the police make false statements about his actions, alleging that he sought revenge on the commissioner by assaulting his daughter. Meanwhile, Young becomes worried about her father and sets out to find him. She soon notices a crowd gathered around the crime scene and discovers her father in handcuffs. Scared, she rushes to him, but the officers quickly hold her back. Following this event, Yu is sent to prison, where the warden beats him up for the alleged crime. He is then placed in cell number 7 with 5 other inmates, who also beat him up because of the false accusations. Despite all this, the innocent Yu continues to think about his daughter. During working hours, the inmates are tasked with making soccer balls. One of Yango's cellmates, Yang Ho, who is considered the leader, uses these balls as a cover to smuggle things into the prison. By distributing these smuggled products, the leader and his gang establish their turf within the prison. However, this also earns them several enemies. One day, a rival gang leader tries to stab Yang Ho from behind, but Young, who notices the attack, intervenes just in time and saves him. Impressed by Young's actions, Yang Ho expresses his wish to see his daughter, Young. As a result, the little girl is brought into the prison along with a choir team who were there for a performance. After waiting for the right time, the girl is abducted and smuggled into cell number 7 to meet her father. This is probably not how you wanted things to happen. As soon as Young meets her, he emotionally embraces her. He apologizes for leaving her and explains that he is being detained. However, their reunion is cut short because the church event is disbanded. The fellow inmates then hurriedly try to smuggle Young out, but they are too late. The church's bus has already departed. As a result, they have no choice but to keep the girl inside the cell with them. One of the cellmates freaks out, thinking about the consequences if they get caught, so he considers alerting the guards. However, he changes his mind when he sees Yu's crying face. Living with them, the fellow cellmates realize that Yu can't be an assailant since he loves his daughter so much. As a couple of days pass, the cell room starts to look more like Young's playground than a prison cell. Since the guards don't know Young is inside, this situation will definitely look bad to them. However, the inmates eventually get along with her and warm up to her because of her cheerful personality. One night, the prison warden goes through the pictures from the choir event and discovers that one of the performing girls is missing. Realizing that the girl has been smuggled inside, he orders an immediate prison-wide inspection. Shortly after Young is found, she is immediately sent to the orphanage, while Young is confined to a solitary cell. That same night, a fire breaks out from an attempted arson as a prisoner protests against allowing a little girl inside the prison. Amidst the chaos, all prisoners are sent to the courtyard, while the warden breaks into the cell to apprehend the protester. However, the fire grows larger, and both the warden and the protester are trapped inside. Witnessing this, Young courageously jumps into the flames to rescue them, disregarding the potential consequences. The scene then cuts to the hospital, where the warden wakes up to learn that he was saved by Young. This makes him realize that Young's crime report was fabricated and that he couldn't commit such a heinous act. On the other hand, Young resumes her schooling. After classes, her teacher asks why she was absent, but Young simply desires to meet her father. She takes her teacher to the prison, leaving her in shock. Once there, the father and daughter are overjoyed to see each other again, and the love between them is evident. The teacher doesn't interrupt them and instead joins in their conversation. However, their happiness is short-lived as visitation time runs out, causing them to be separated. The warden sees Yu's love for his daughter for the first time and becomes more convinced of his innocence. This reminds him of his own son, who was killed by an inmate. After the separation, Young grieves so much that she stops eating and ends up in the hospital. The warden visits her to check on her well-being. During this visit, the little girl requests to be arrested and taken to her father's cell. Touched by this, the warden allows her to visit her father every day after school. Additionally, he reviews Yu's crime files and discovers that his statement was falsified. Seeing the injustice that Yu is facing, the warden vows to prove his innocence. He goes to the commissioner and requests a reinvestigation of Yu's case, unaware that it was the commissioner who set him up. Meanwhile, within the prison, the inmates from cell number 7 enjoy their time with Young. The little girl teaches the leader how to read and write, a weakness that nobody knew about until now, and they all laugh together. One day, Young borrows a cell phone from one of her classmates and brings it inside the prison. She hands it to an inmate, allowing him to call his wife and his newborn baby girl. As the days pass, they all form a special bond with Young and start living like a family, despite the fact that many of her uncles have committed serious crimes. They also learn that Yu's final trial date is approaching. In response, the inmates pledge to train him for success in the trial so that he can return to his happy life with his daughter. To prepare him, they first ask you to explain the incident in detail. They also go through several scenarios to understand the incident better. After a few days, they finally conclude that the commissioner's daughter actually slipped on a frozen puddle. While falling, the girl grabbed a plastic wrap, causing a brick to fall on her head and kill her. The inmates also learn that Yu was blackmailed into signing a falsified report, which led to his incarceration. Having unraveled the truth, Yu is trained on how to answer potential prosecution questions, despite the difficulty posed by his mental illness. The inmates are confident that he will win because of the mistreatment he has endured. They make a note of all possible questions along with their answers, which Yu studies day and night. Additionally, the cellmates organize a petition from fellow prisoners to attend Yu's trial in a show of support. Amidst the preparations, a public lawyer comes to meet Yu. The lawyer says that he must plead guilty to save his daughter, asserting that the commissioner will hurt Young if he wins the trial. The lawyer also abandons the prisoner's petition, saying it won't help because they've all committed serious crimes. In the next scene, the long-anticipated trial day arrives, and Yu is brought to court for his final verdict. In the waiting room, the commissioner beats him in a fit of rage, threatening to kill his daughter if he doesn't confess. A while later, the trial begins, and Yu, who is very worried for his daughter, sacrifices himself by pleading guilty to the accusations. The prison warden tries to convince the judge that Yu is mentally intimidated, but he is ultimately sentenced to death. The execution date is scheduled for December 23rd, which happens to fall on Yu's birthday. Back in the prison, the inmates feel sorry for Yu, so they decide to take matters into their own hands. They devise a plan to build a hot air balloon to facilitate his escape. They dedicate their days and nights to this project, driven by the motivation to free an innocent man from the clutches of injustice. They also request the help of all the other prisoners and Yu's teachers to commence the plan. A few days later, the prison organizes a program in which Young, along with some other children, performs in a choir. At the end of the performance, Young takes her father's hand and invites him to the yard, with other prisoners joining to create the illusion that the event is ongoing. Seizing the moment, the inmates send Yu and Young up in the balloon and release the rope. As they fly away, the guards become aware of their escape attempt, but the prisoners stop them from chasing the balloon. However, the balloon's rope gets caught by barbed wire, causing their plan to fail. With nowhere to go, the father and daughter use this moment to savor the setting sun together. On December 23rd, Yu and the cellmates celebrate Young's birthday before he is taken for execution. They surprise the little girl with a birthday cake and multiple gifts. Young finally presents her with the Sailor Moon backpack they had been thinking of buying for a long time. Overjoyed with the present, the little girl thanks him for being her father. As Yu and Young embrace, the rest of the fellow inmates, aware of Yu's fate, are unable to hold back their tears. Despite this, they don't say a word in front of the little girl. They simply pretend that her father is being transferred to another facility and tell her to stay strong. Shortly afterward, the prison guards arrive to take Yu for execution. Before leaving, he thanks all of his fellow cellmates for their care and support. The inmates are clearly saddened, but their helplessness is evident as Yu walks past the hall with his daughter. The other prisoners also share in the sorrow. When the moment of separation comes, Yu tries hard to hold back his tears. He hugs Young for the last time before heading to his execution. While walking away, he hears his daughter's voice and rushes back to embrace her. He pleads for help because he doesn't want to be separated from his daughter. However, it's too late now, and even the warden seems powerless. Yu is eventually executed for a crime he did not commit. 16 years later, Young, now a lawyer, appeals for her father's case, as he is still considered a criminal. With the support of the prison warden and the former inmates of cell number 7, she is finally able to prove his innocence. The judge exonerates Yu by overturning the previous verdict and orders a reinvestigation into the little girl's death. This brings immense joy to the former inmates, the warden, and a tearful Young. The scene then returns to the beginning of the film, where Young has a vision of Yu and her younger self on the hot air balloon, waving goodbye. The movie ends as she tearfully bids goodbye to her father as the balloon flies away.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.